So, if you can keep your filters and your mindset, and if you can be mindful and stay in that mode throughout your day, you're going to start putting a lot of good days together.
Yeah.
And start changing your narrative. I don't want my story to be of a monstrous, violent person. I want my story to be is how I overcame all that, and became a real mindful human being.
Battle Line podcast. You could see the length of this episode. This is a really, really good one. We get into some great stuff. You do not want to go anywhere, and be sure to subscribe, because we are just about at the time of this recording at 5,500 subscribers, which I'm really happy about. And we'd love to keep that going, man. So subscribe if you're on YouTube, or leave a comment, or leave a review if you're on the audio platforms. I know Spotify, you could leave a comment on the episode. Whatever platform you're on, all that stuff helps in the algorithm and all that good stuff, as they say. And we're going to be doing a guest-free show soon, which we haven't done in ages. So email us any question, any comment. Just no guest suggestions. We have more than enough guests coming up. But if you have a question that you've ever wanted to ask us, or a comment, battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. I really think people are going to love this episode.
Oh, yes. If you are a contractor, Ranger, Delta, this is going to, and especially in the early days, in the 03, 04, you're going to remember things. And if you weren't, you're going to hear some amazing stories. And it's crazy. I loved it. I brought my memories back when I was in Iraq. It was one, and Lee is he's a great guy, man. So yeah, I know you guys are going to love it, and you're going to love Lee, and you're going to want to continue to follow his journey, man. Cause it sounds like he's got his shit wired tight, excuse my language, but he's got focus, and we can all learn a lot from him. Just from his life and what he's lived through, even in his early days, which were, wow, I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. But I'll let you guys got to listen to that. So I'm not going to tell you what it was.
Yeah. If you're on the video platforms, I will quickly say, yes, I am rocking an Islander jersey yet again, because someone commented in the last one, they liked the episode, but they were like, go Stars. The Islanders are in the playoffs officially, so I had to represent. I'm very excited about that. Now, before we get into this episode, I know a lot of you guys are regularly hitting the gym. You're probably taking supplements for that. You're probably got your pre-workout and your creatine and your protein powders. But the thing that I think is more important than all that, because some of that stuff's detrimental, but truthfully, are you taking good relief supplements? Because you're growing and your muscles are repairing and recovering and all that while you're asleep. So if you're not getting a good night's sleep, you're kind of screwed, quite honestly. Magnesium, you're probably deficient in magnesium, as most of us are, because there's certain, if you Google what's high in magnesium, things like Brazil nuts, but you're probably not eating enough of that. Something like a mellow magnesium supplement from Ned is going to do wonders for you. Also, CBD is great for a good night's sleep, good for post-traumatic stress, and even like more severe issues like Alzheimer's. There's studies showing that it may help with that. And their relief balm is a total lifesaver. I could tell you, I put some on last night. It's probably the only thing I know of on the market that not only has that menthol, but also has that full spectrum hemp to alleviate those issues. So check them out. They're really the best relief supplement company on the market, and they've been with us since the very beginning. HelloNed.com/battleline, or add the code battleline at checkout. That's HELLONED.com/battleline. HelloNed.com/battleline. Check it out, and let's get right into this episode with Lee Deckelman.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on, Battle Line Podcast. Really excited to have on with us Lee Deckelman,
Yeah,
the
panda me.
author, the
Panda
author of
both
this
us.
book,
Other-
Internal Volume, Where a Monster and Mindfulness Become One. And you have a really amazing background, I have to say, not just kissing your ass. Combat veteran, Green Beret, Airborne Ranger, security contractor with places like Blackwater. You got the Blackwater hat on now. 9/11 paramedic, federal air marshal, and now the founder of Be Yoga Strong Foundation. And the thing about this book, man, this is not just your average combat veteran book, because it gets into a lot of struggles of your life itself, and then also you get into a lot of your yoga practice and mindfulness practice. And I think this is a book a lot of people need to pick up, and I'm really excited to get into your background, man.
Oh, thank you so much, Ian.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and like
Yeah.
we were talking off camera, guys, before we hit record here. You know, Lee and I, we probably crossed paths, but the Ranger stuff we'll get into. And I want to get, we'll start there, but I kind of jump. Yeah, when were you at Blackwater, man? And how did we not cross
Oh,
paths?
I was an original triple canopy guy in 04.
Oh,
And-
okay. So you're over at Camp Olympia. You're at was that where you guys were?
Yeah,
at?
well, eventually, yeah. Eventually they to Dublin.
Yeah.
And then it all kind of grew really fast. But in the beginning we were just on the side of the road in Haji tents. But
that's
so I had an opportunity to go to Blackwater in 05 after that really dark day when the chopper went down, when the Mambas got hit coming to Ramadi. I had an opportunity to stay with Blackwater then, but the pay was so much different. I went another direction. That's all. I just went another direction until 07. And then I jumped on with Blackwater then bounced around, and came back to Blackwater from 08 or 09 to 2000 till the end, till they changed names and changed styles and Eric wasn't in charge anymore.
Well, what was that like? Because I've heard stories. I left. I was gone. I went to the agency in 06. Now it's still kind of Blackwater. Then it went to SOC, and then it went to the direct hire. We hired the DIC program is what we called it, which it was direct hire independent contractor, the DIC program. But
that's why I've never heard that. That's hilarious. I love the military acronyms. It's great.
But what was that like? Because I know Eric, and I actually protected him and his family when I come home at times, because they had some group, crazy precursor to Antifa group that was after his family in DC. But he was, I don't agree with everything Eric did when he renounced his citizenship. It was done. I know, but I get he was pissed. But he did take care of us, and he did take care of Blackwater. We always had what we needed, and that's what I loved about Eric. What was it like, though, when he left, and how did Blackwater change? Because I know it changed. I still got buddies that work there, but I want to hear from you, and we got you here because I don't think it got better. I think it got worse, but you were there.
No, so what happened, Tonto, is, the yearly evolution. I was over there every year from 04 to 12, and then I started doing non-governmental, the Facebook stuff, the Haiti stuff, just random stuff. And so to answer your question, it just become a budget company, which is what which EODT was, what SOC became, except for the special projects. Just a budget company. People that don't know what they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. For some reason they got in this position, and it's just if the money wasn't so good, you just wouldn't do that. And at my age, I wouldn't do it regardless of money. So you grow too. I noticed you talk about that a little bit, how you're kind of a different version, a better version of yourself, less monstrous, more human. And I think that's my whole story. I think that's the essence of the book.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, there's more and more veterans who are open to say like, yeah, yoga changed my life. Like we've
Yeah.
had Justin Blazewski on, who's a Marine veteran and was also a contractor and started something similar to yours. It's
Yeah.
called Vetoga. And like with what you're doing with Be Yoga Strong Foundation, you teach yoga courses free of charge to veterans. And it's the way he described it, which might be strange to people, is because this is a stereotypical manly guy. He's a guy who's a contractor, Marine, and he's like, yoga brought me a little bit more into my feminine energy. And he's like, because I needed to calm down some of that stuff that made me more toxic masculine male. And he's like, I needed to get into that energy and kind of get these crazy thoughts out of my head, these suicidal thoughts, these angry, aggressive thoughts. And like you talk about that a lot in your book. And I think how it balanced you out and how it's going to help balance out other veterans.
Right. So when he says it allowed him to be more feminine, I think he's expressing he was allowed to connect, to be more loving, to be more
Yeah.
forgiving, be more human. I think that's a more accurate thing that happens. And so the neurology, the reason why I bought in, I'm a critical thinker. I'm a logical person. I'm a type A. It's like if you convince me that something's right, I'm gonna go with it. And so the neurology now supports everything about mindfulness yoga that they've been saying for thousands of years. So what has to happen is that busy mind, because we're not hunter gatherers anymore. We're living in this whole new world, and we're supposed to think, well, you're not normal if you don't like it. Well, it's like it's brand new, and so it causes a lot of problems. So if you can take that busy mind that's constantly in the future, constantly in the past, never happy with right now, if you take that busy mind and take that wore out body that you've been disconnecting from, compartmentalizing, if you can slow everything down and get quiet and get soft and let your ego go, which, I feel like I've done a lot, but I barely, got into getting rid of that ego, because for guys like us, it's such an important part of a warrior class of people, to whatever it is, to be there at the end, with a smile on your face, so to speak. So, yoga really does. The science proves it, and that's why I bought into it. And it's not just free yoga for veterans. Whether you're a widow, a warrior, or anybody in between, trauma is an actual wound. It's an actual injury. And yoga allows you to connect, which connecting from a loving place is really the only way to heal, or the best way to heal. So yeah.
Yeah, when he said it was a feminine, I didn't agree with that when he said we got touching on feminines, because being a true man is someone that can be open and tender and comforting and sensitive, but also be strong. And when it's time, so that's why we say
for
it's
sure. But I
show.
actually do agree with the way Justin put it, because I think when you think of the over masculine male, right? The guy who's putting more, and you talked about this, the guy who's putting more testosterone in his body than he should have, and he roid rages, like that's the ultra masculine, where you are putting your energy into these negative places. And I think we are all some balance of, just like we're some balance of yin and yang, we are all some balance of masculine energy, feminine energy. And a lot of that comes from Buddhism. A lot of that does come from the philosophy behind yoga, mindfulness practice.
I think a lot of it
personally do agree with it.
I think it comes from just having virtue. That's what I think. It's my opinion. And
Well,
taking too many steroids, that's just you being a drug addict. You're drug regardless. I don't care if it's cocaine or not.
Wait,
you're a drug
but I'll
addict.
throw in one other thing actually here,
sorry, Lee,
and then I'll get back to Lee. No, I'll get back to Lee. But when I had on Evan Seinfeld, right, who's also into yoga and all that, one of the things he said to me that is absolutely true. He said, "Look, truthfully, who are the people who are shooting up schools, who are killing innocent civilians?" He's like, "It's not women, it's men." So we need to find a way to handle this within our own community of men, that men aren't lashing out in violent ways and they are using that energy in a positive way. So I think yoga is something that helps with that.
Well, a great thing you bring up is, so why are men? Well, these aren't strong men. So what you're talking about is weak men that go and shoot up high
Yeah.
schools. So what's the difference between a weak and a strong man? And so I think Jordan Peterson goes into that better than anybody. He articulates what people like me have felt, most of their life. And so, a harmless man, and I'm quoting Jordan,
Yeah,
or
I've heard
trying
this.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, a harmless man isn't a good man. He's just a rabbit. He can't do anything different. So a real violent man that chooses not to be violent, that's a strong man. That's a
Yeah.
good person. And we don't teach that. But his word is getting out there to people, maybe not enough people. But I think what we're doing is we're creating a weaker version of man, thinking that that's the best way to do it, when reality is, strong men, you can count on them to make good decisions. And weak people are scary. There's
Absolutely.
nothing worse to me, and for people that have killed people and have homicidal tendencies, there's nothing scarier to me than a weak monster. Strong monsters like the guys I work with, my coworkers, people from my clan, is a whole different version of killer. It's a whole different version of person. And that doesn't get talked a lot about either.
Uh, and what you just said, I think it reiterates both what Ian and I are saying, even though it seems like we're on the complete opposite plane.
No, I think we
No,
agree. It's just the terminology.
It's that
Yeah.
you are a strong enough man, strong enough that you can, I don't know, not getting in touch with my feminine side. I'm just strong enough that I can accept any side that's out there. So I'm going to be a better person all around. And I'm going to be able to, have the virtue to say, no, I'm not going to go shoot up a school today.
Right.
Not that it's
Right.
just, and a lot of people say, well, that's the law. I'll be honest, that the law and going to jail really doesn't stop me from doing things. It's because it's not the right thing to do. But, and I
Right.
think people say something, well, that's the feminine. No, that's not the feminine side. That's just
I think
the
the
right
problem
thing to
is, yeah,
do.
people who snap and do not have any outlet for their aggression. That's the problem, I think, is that people need to find an outlet for their aggression. And especially as males, we have aggression. And I think whether it's going to a shooting range or whether it's lifting weights or getting that aggression out in a healthy way, you have to have that outlet. Because, and Chris and I have talked about this in other episodes, but like if you're the guy sitting at your computer and you have that aggression and you're doing absolutely nothing all
Yeah.
day, that's the type of person who's going to snap and do something really
Yeah.
stupid.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Lee, we kind of got on a rant, man. Sorry.
I love this
I
kind
love,
of
I
stuff.
love, it's good
But
stuff.
yeah, this is all in the
About
book.
this
This
kind
is
of
all an
stuff.
internal
that's
volume. So yeah.
Well, let's do this since we kind of, we haven't hit on it yet. Let's just start. What you got into Ranger Battalion, and we all had that, we all had that ego, kind of prove ourselves, but also, man, I'm gonna be a killer like those people in Vietnam. I'm a Ranger. Tell us from the beginning, and then how did it, transmorph into a wiser, gentler, but stronger. And that's what I get. We are gentler, but we are stronger as well person to where you are now. And and I just want to hear your life story. And we're condensed on time a little bit, but yeah, hit some points in there and just why you even joined.
I'll try to do the short versions of things so that we can try to get to everything you guys want to talk to. So, to just get up to joining the Army, I was born 2.5 months premature. So, I was below average from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, I weighed 4 pounds, and I spent a couple months in an incubator in the hospital. And then finally, when I got out, there was a transition. I had to go to foster care. And so I stayed in a foster home until I was about 6, got back with my family. My dad died at 9. And so now I'm with a traumatized widowed mother that's homicidal and suicidal. And at age 14, she tried to kill me with a butcher's knife. So I had to go live with my uncle and aunt I didn't know at the time that my uncle didn't graduate the 8th grade and had to go in the Army instead of going into jail during Vietnam. And I didn't know that my aunt caught my mother sleeping with her husband that was before my uncle that I was living with. So I was going through all this, like, it feels like they hate me. Like I don't want to be here, you know? And so to sum that up, you know, it was a lot of trauma. So you learn how to compartmentalize very well if you're successful through those traumas growing up. And that makes a great candidate for special operations. So I never wanted to go in the military because I hated this one. I was a wild animal. Like I got to grow up like a wild animal. And that I don't recommend it, but it was fun, you know, just being a boy and doing everything I could think of and getting away with it was fun. And you can't do that anymore. And I don't recommend it and that, but it was fun. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be a college football player. Now I'm 5'6" and weigh 155 pounds. So I'm going to be a college football player. Now I make F's and D's. And you know, I have no interest in schoolwork. I just like doing tough guy stuff.
Well, it sounds
know,
like you'd be okay nowadays. I mean, aside from your size, I mean, yeah,
right,
you get paid to do college football. Screw going to class. You can stay in college for 7 years and not get your
well,
doctorate. It's
I
still
couldn't
play.
get my grades. So, but I didn't hit that, you know, I lived day by day. So when I graduated high school, when I saw my friends kind of disperse to their next phase in life, I was on pause, you know, and so I had another friend that was on pause and he said, let's join the Marine Corps. And man, I needed a job. I was 19 and still living at home. And I felt terrible about that. You know, my generation, that wasn't cool, you know, to still live at home and to not have a job. So, the Marine recruiter wasn't there. There was one of those SEALs that are famous that the guy you just had on recently.
Rob
O'Neill?
Yeah. So it was similar to his scenario, except it was me and another buddy. We went to the Marine Corps and he wasn't there. He was out to lunch. And so on our way out, the Army guy standing there, I'll never forget it. It was this little staff sergeant. And he was just standing there with his hands on his hips, waiting for us to walk by. And he said, can I help y'all? I said, no, we're here to join the Marine Corps. And he said, why do you want to join the Marine Corps? I said, because they're the toughest. And he said, have you heard about the Army Rangers? And that was it. He showed me that 15-minute video with them in OG 107s, you know, fatigues with a rappelling rope, walking through the swamps. And I thought, that's me. And so that was it. Yeah.
Man, I saw that same video, bro. That's what made me. It's like, that is cool. And then they did. I don't know if you remember, but they at the end of it, they panned out with the hard, you know, slide, just a solid brick jaw, and he's got that beret on, and that flash is pulled down so it's not illegal. It's beyond regs. You know, it's facing.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not standard, but it's tolerated.
It's tolerated, especially if you're a salty ranger. And I'm like, that dude looks like the coolest pirate I have ever seen in my life.
I know. Yeah, I used to get chill bumps after PT, putting on duty uniform and put my beret on. I used to get chill bumps, like I'm here, you know. So
did you get a RIP contract at that time? Did you go in?
No,
or did you?
No. We'd have to do a whole nother podcast on my adventure. If you read in the book, maybe Ian read that part in the book. It was a.
See, he knows Rangers can't read. That's why he said Ian.
Yeah.
Ian, you read that?
It was funny. We were talking prior to when we started the interview, and you were like, "Oh, cool! You read some of the book before you actually had me on." And I'm like, "Of course." Which, by the way, hey, I appreciate you listening to prior shows before coming on. I think both are pretty cool. So,
well, you guys had a friend of mine on, and you know, you guys, like I said earlier, you know, you're two legit folks out there doing this, and so having an opportunity to get my story out there, my book out there, y'all know how important that is to people, and I couldn't be more grateful. I live as a minimalist now. I don't have really any help with the foundation. It's more of just what I'm doing, and I'd love for it to come to fruition.
Well, and it is, man. That's why we definitely wanted to get you on. I did look at all I thought I like your, because you got pictures, man. I
Hey,
looked at all and talk about playing football. Don't sell yourself short. I wanted to ask because I played that's why I paid for college. I had a football
right,
scholarship.
right.
Yeah, you were MVP, man. And I remember I read that. And how was that, man? 5'6", 155
Well,
pounds. You're the MVP. What tell everybody position and
I,
and
I
your
well,
experience, man. That's
well, I
cool.
think in high school, the bar is a little bit lower than
Oh,
college,
sure.
and depending on what college and what division you go to, it's levels. It's just like being an infantryman versus being an airborne ranger versus being in the unit. It's levels, and so that would be um, that would just be the simplest way to look at that.
I'm glad you put that in there because I do think that's still important in high school is sports and
Yeah,
having that extracurricular. And
yes.
I'm assuming you feel the same way. Again, people read
Well,
the book, but yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't wrap up that question, Todd. Off. So yeah, I think everybody should do sports. If you don't like sports, that's fine. I think you should have some athleticism. I think every animal in nature should play and move and be able to do the basic minimums of you drove your car into a flood, and before the water gets over the roof, you got enough physical strength and ability to get yourself out and save your own life. Just basic things like that. And I think you learn a lot. It builds character and everything, but I don't think you have to be a good athlete to be good at anything. But I do think participating and being part of athletic programs. But for me, I came into a world that didn't want me. That's what it felt like. And after my dad died, we were poor, and I was a little Jewish boy in Middle Tennessee. And so it was like, I don't want to be Jewish. I don't want to be here. I want my dad back. Like, I didn't, the world didn't want me, and I didn't want it either. And so my dad was, this was before integration. My dad was Maryland's star running back in 1936.
wow.
And so that's all I knew, is that he was a World War II vet, a tanker, and he was a star football player, a star athlete. So I wanted to be like my dad.
That's
So
cool.
that was it. He was dead, and
Which
I
kind of sounds
wanted
like
to.
Chris. Kind of sounds like Chris.
Yeah.
So.
So
Yeah.
football gave my life meaning, and
Yeah.
so that was my first love after my father. That was my first love, and so yeah. So I put my heart and soul into it. I was a very average person that just didn't want to be average. I played above probably where I should have been.
Hey,
That sounds
so
like
you know
it
what I
sounds like
wanted to.
sounds like a ranger right there too. That sounds exactly like a ranger regiment right there. People are just average and don't want to be average, so we exceed
That's right.
everything, every skill that God's given us, and we push it to the limits, man.
Yeah.
That's a great statement. I'm
Yeah.
using that for a speech, brother. I'm
Well,
stealing
thank
it.
you.
I'm using it.
You
Yeah.
know what I wanted to ask you about was I spoke about this on the last episode, how it's crazy. It blows my mind sometimes. Like, I've been doing this, like, the whole interviewing veterans thing for 11 years. And like, I remember 11 years ago, late 2000s, early 2010s, there were all these Navy SEALs putting out books. It was Marcus Luttrell, Brandon Webb, who I worked with, and actually a lot of them got criticized for that. And then there were more and more guys like Chris putting out books, Army Rangers, some Marines, and that type of thing. There's actually not as many guys of your era who served as Green Berets or Army Rangers during the 90s who have put out books and talked about that experience. So for our listeners who don't know, like, what was it like being a 90s Ranger? Because that is pre 9/11. That's, you did
Sure.
all that in contracting later on.
Sure. Well, I think society was a little different. The military culture was a little different. The old school version of special ops was you didn't join to get a pat on the back or get your name in the paper. That's not why you're here. And the Army held to that because the paramount place to be for, if you want to run around shooting folks at a high level is Delta, CAG. And so, the Ranger Battalion in some ways was a feeder program for there. And now it's become its own pretty special place without the connection to Delta. So they're a standalone, not that they never was, but Tonto probably understands the difference. The fine difference I'm trying to make there.
And many of the Rangers and people listening they understand that too. I mean, they do. They especially the peacetime Rangers is what we were called and in some aspects from some people in the 90s. But yeah, we were. It was we're here to either go to RRD or to get out or to go to CAG. And in the 90s, that's what we're there for.
Yeah, and the last thing that you were going to do was talk to the news, get your picture and something. We were just taught. We were just taught in the Army. Maybe it was just a cultural thing, the Army versus the Navy. We were just taught that was a big no-no to do anything like that, and you didn't want to embarrass your peers. Your brothers, that family. That's what I found was family. That's what was missing in my life, and I found a family, and ultimately I found that kind of like what put Chris on the radar was not his military career, it was a contracting career. And I feel the same. I feel the same. It's like I got all this great training and then I got to go do it as a civilian, which was pretty cool.
And,
yeah. So, but it just not get a pat on the back. But what's happened with me? Why did I decide? Well, as you can see, my book really isn't about war. It's about just trauma and a monstrous life, and intermittently there's some war in there, so it's not just a book about war. But the reason why I gave myself the green light, because when we started showing the actual people in tier 1 units that were killing top targets on Fox News, I thought I could tell my damn story. I ain't done nothing close to that important. So, I'm going to share, but the real reason, the God's honest truth, the moment I decided to do this, my attorney in Nashville said that maybe you should write a book and get some notoriety to help your foundation, because that's ultimately what I want to do. I want to have a free yoga foundation and grow that from my local community, where there is a studio that has teachers 7 days a week, all different styles of yoga, that's free to the public, free of political, free of religion, just therapy. And it's free. And the reason why I say that is because yoga attracts, I think the demographic is 75% of yoga teachers or students, or a combination of both, is some variable of that, are educated, rich, white women. That's it. So that's the demographic. So yoga comes from a warrior class of people. When it came from the East, those were samurai type people doing those poses, focusing on staying calm under the stress of battle, holding swords, doing stressful physical things. So when it got to the US, it got sissified. I don't know the best way.
You could say wussified. You can say wussified on this. Sissified,
wussified. Or whatever. That's the way people used to talk. I don't know a better way to talk about it. But it's not. And so the type of yoga I'm teaching, it's a warrior class of yoga. It's from a position of strength.
How did you get, Ian? I don't want to. If you're
I believe it or not, I was going to ask that too, because I was going to say that in the book you talk about how in your early 40s, how you were like, I should be financially stable at this point, and I'm going through the worst stuff in my life right now. Right. And then you discover yoga. So I'd love to get into why were you in the worst state of your life? Like, explain a little bit of that and how you discovered yoga and how this got you out of that dark place.
Right. So if you just look at my opinion versus the neurology, those would have been two different things. But you know, I made some bad choices. I call it bipolar happiness. So, you know, I was busy. I was running from my past. I was just, you know, I was on to the next thing. If I had a failure, I knew the best thing to do was dust myself off and get on with it, you know, and eventually you make enough bad decisions and you go from, you know, when I was at Team Miami making, you know, $25,000 a month, doing what I wanted to do my whole life at the top level with the greatest guys ever. You know, and then a couple years later, you know, go through a divorce, lose all your money, you know, just you don't even realize that you're not a good person. You've got so many biases and lies and your life's so busy that you don't realize that you're not compassionate. You're not this. You're more of like a ranger team leader when you talk to people, or a drill sergeant, or you know all these things. And so, you know, what yoga allows you to do is slow down, soften, become, you know, more human. And so what did it was I read The Body Kept the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and I cried like a baby. And I finally got through it, and I kept listening to it on audio over and over again, practicing yoga, and I was like, this is helping me. I'm getting it. And so, you know, I decided that I was going to make a mindful shift from being a mindless monster. You know, I was monstrous. And when you think you're doing the right thing, when your negative self-talk is just, and you know that, well, I'm coming from, this is the way it is, and I'm right and they're wrong. When you're always doing that, you can always justify not treating people well, or not treating yourself well, or all those things. And so being vulnerable enough to slow down and start accepting those things, and looking in the mirror instead of at other people, all that kind of culminated. And that was a fork in the road. And since that fork in the road, life has gotten a lot better.
No, we have a lot of narcissistic tendencies, especially when we're doing it that long, where we do feel that, hey, well, I'm over there protecting people, so you know, God's going to look the other way when I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. I mean, we feel holier than thou. We really do. It's narcissism. It's egomania. It's being egomaniac. It's being a megalomaniac more than anything. And brother, your book is similar to, except aside from the yoga, because I just can't do yoga. I do Pilates. I just can't do yoga for crap. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working
Tonto,
on it.
You could do my class, buddy.
I will come to it.
I call it pajama pants class. The pajama pants are optional, but it's that easy. That's my motto.
You don't want me coming naked, man. I mean,
brother, y'all ever come down here? I'll give you the hometown special treatment. We'll go see Jack Daniels and George Dickel and Black Rifle Coffee, and you know, I'll give you guys the hometown
deal, brother. Deal.
Tour.
But you know, you're right. We have to fail quite a bit just to figure out, okay, now what we're doing, we're living wrong, and it takes a lot of those smacks in the face. But
sure.
I know, and that's why I admired. You know, I admire you because you did it. You went through that too, and you went through those times where you're crying like a baby and like what? And then eventually looking in the mirror and going, okay, I got it, God. And I believe in God. I know you, and I'm telling people, like, you believe whatever you want. There's something else out there, but I believe in God. He's going to give you enough opportunities where finally just smacks you in the face, and you either can say, okay, I got it, or you keep going down that road, and you got it, man. And the yoga has got you out of it and got you in the right spot. So as we're moving forward now, you got the yoga. What with the classes, how did you start doing the classes, and how did you start getting, you know, you just didn't say, well, I'm going to start holding some classes. And I know the books, but I want you to talk about it too. I want you a little bit, because you just don't, you don't say, I'm going to hold a class, man.
You know, I'm not the best businessman in the world, but I have good intentions. So my last trip as a contractor in 2019 was Haiti.
Yeah.
By the way, that's pretty recent
Yeah.
for a guy your
Yeah,
age,
and,
like truthfully.
and they got him the next year.
Yeah.
They got the president the next year, but I was down there looking after him and his wife the year before, and Tonto, what did you ask me? I got to
No,
thinking
I
about
mean,
the
it's like,
president getting shot.
and that's what's really, it is a business question. What made you, how did you start? You just can't start start doing yoga and then start holding
Oh yeah,
classes and people
yeah,
are going to come to you. I know that's what we think we can do. Like, I'm going to advertise some yoga classes on Facebook and everybody's going to, it doesn't work that way. I hate to say
yeah. No.
So,
So
what'd you do?
so I was having issues with my blood pressure, but I didn't know it. I was just used to running hot, running. I'm more pissed off than normal. I don't know what's wrong, but it was my blood pressure. I was walking around at about 170 over 115 on a normal day.
Wow.
That was just normal for me. And so when I figured out my blood pressure was a real problem, getting that addressed helped a lot. But at the time, I was so stressed out at some of the decisions and some of the things we were doing down there. I didn't want nothing to do with it anymore. I just wanted to go home and be done with this shit. I started out in '04, in my opinion, with the best team I've ever been a part of. It was one of the best scenarios I could have ever been a part of. And just like your experience, as bad as some of the bad days were, like that's a special to be a part of something that profound is for guys like us is special.
It makes the bad, it makes the bad even good. It makes even what people will think would be, it doesn't, it is, it just makes it memorable, obviously. But yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But keep going, man. Keep going on your, keep going on how you got the yoga started and your first class and all that.
When I got back, I piled up some money. I was making like $850 a day, and I piled up, right? So I was like, I'm going to put $10,000 towards starting this foundation. I prepaid for my yoga training. I had read the book, and Bessel van der Kolk said in 2014, yoga did more to help traumatized victims than any medication on the market. And I was like, well, hell, I like this. It's working for me. I'm just going to go become a teacher, and I'm going to give this stuff for free, because I always wanted to be a part of a foundation ever since I left Facebook, because Sheryl Sandberg, during one of her Lean In Foundation speeches, it was another fork in the road. When she got done, I was like, I want to be like you. Like, I want to be that person. I want to be a good person. I want to do good things. So yeah. So I started, the American Legion in Tullahoma allowed me to use that space 6 days a week. I taught 2 classes a day, 6 days a week until COVID hit.
Gotcha.
And ever since then, I've just been dispersed, just going anywhere where I can teach for free. But I got enough time left. I think I got another 15 or 20 years left if the Lord's willing. And that's plenty of time to see this dream I have through, because, helping other people is a great way to help yourself heal too. And people don't realize that. But, finding ways to feel good about myself is what I like to spend my time doing.
Yeah, it creates greater purpose. I mean, I could tell you for myself, I'm definitely not the yogi that you are, but I every now and again will take a yoga class, and it's helped me. And it's also even influenced the way that I stretch before a workout and things like that. And the stuff that I've learned in yoga has allowed me to heal my body better than even stuff that I've got. Like, it's even better sometimes than deep tissue massage, because I'm more in touch with my body now, because I think yoga is all about shutting off the mind and getting into the body. And you're able to do certain poses where you go, wow, for me, my problem area is always my neck and back, or upper back. And it's like, all right, this certain pose makes me feel better. Let me incorporate this into my stretching. And you know, I have a certification as a personal trainer. I'm not currently doing that, but it is definitely more so than going to classes regularly. It's influenced the way that I stretch and things like that prior to a workout. And I think for guys like yourself, guys like Chris, and the more like alpha male mindset of working out is just like pushing it and pushing it and pushing to the limit. But if that's all that you do, yeah, you're going to wear out your joints. You're going to have injuries. And I think yoga helps to alleviate a lot of that.
Well, I think yoga is a vehicle to cure the trauma, the actual wound, whereas exercise just clears the energy. So if you're having a bad day and you go on a 3 mile run, you get done, you feel great. You're ready to go have a beer and go out on a date or something. You know, your whole mood changes because you were able to physically clear. You know, you go chop wood for a couple hours and you're not pissed off anymore. But it doesn't fix the underlying which yoga does. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it too. And you know, the again, it goes to allowing yourself to slow down, to reconnect, to allow yoga to be that yoke. And yeah, it does work. It works for me. And the people that I've found that don't like it or it doesn't work for is they don't have time to slow down, or they don't want to slow down. They like all the busy, they like all the noise, they like the multitasking, they like the ego, they like the thinking the world can't live without them. But when you've had enough,
Yeah.
you know, and you're ready for something different, there's a lot of things out there that'll temporarily make you feel better. They're called addictions. You know, you're workaholic, you're on Amazon buying shit all the time, you know, whatever it is, you're separating from your pain. And what yoga allows you to do is start healing that pain, and a layer at a time. And I've, you know, the first year or two, I knew logically what it was supposed to do and what I was, but you know, I was still kind of a bloodless scholar. I didn't practice what I was preaching because I couldn't. But you know, those neural pathways are changing, the neuroplasticity behind what yoga does, the mindfulness part, the meditative part, you know, the meditation part, the loving kindness. So what you were talking about, Chris, was loving kindness is a virtue. And love, I don't know if there is a better virtue. And so that can be taken by somebody or worded by somebody as an effeminate or feminine or whatever. But you know, that's not how I would word it or how you would word it. But I think maybe somebody wording that way is sort of saying the same thing. But yeah.
Well, and maybe us, our alpha males side stereotypes that too. Because it is a stereotype. You can't be tough in love. Well, we're fine. And you know, Clint Eastwood couldn't. You know, you didn't see that back in the old spaghetti western days. You know,
That's right.
But then we realized, yeah, we can. In fact, we can even love hard, really hard, if we can get past the ego. And that is where, you know, guys like yourself or those that were willing to open up and write about things that they'd messed up on. I think that's when things started to change. It wasn't the war books like I'm killing. It's hey man, guess
Being
what?
vulnerable.
Guess what? Yeah, exactly.
See,
he needs to be the host on the show. I wouldn't. He's got a better grasp of vocabulary than I do. But being vulnerable is exactly right, and that's why. You know, when Ian asked about writing the books now, more books, is there are more books that are like that. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's hey man, I screwed up. You know, Jack Murphy has it. I wrote The Ranger Way. We've got the internal volume. And I know there's tons more out there. I just don't read enough because I'm not a smart man, but I need to read a little bit more. But those books are important because it does show that warrior ethos mentality that we had, and those warriors that we're going to kick indoors. Now it's, hey, you know what? We learned from those times, and you can be vulnerable too, and still be hard as nails, and still love everything, and still be a wonderful person. You know, you don't have to be effeminate as some maybe.
Yeah.
So, but you know, going through and you have wonderful pictures in the book. I love books. I do.
What I wanted to ask you, I don't want to cut you out, but at some point, if there's anybody in the book that I mentioned that you think you knew, I was interested to find out.
Actually, all that whole Special Operation Wounded Warrior crew. I did a speech when I first started speaking. They invited me in to do it. I knew all those guys, man.
Brian
Malachi,
yeah, Brian Malachi. He's still working. So
they're a great group.
I won't talk about him. But yeah. Have you ever gone to that hog hunt?
Yeah, I've never done the hog hunt, but I've been the country. I don't know if you know David Floyd from Somalia, 375 guys. He's a.
No, I know the name. I don't know him. Yeah,
but yeah, that's who got me involved with SOWW, and he's invited me a lot of times, and I just haven't gone.
Hey, get out there, man! Get out there. I went once. He invites me every year, and he's mad at me because he was one of my privates in Ranger Battalion.
No way.
But he's outgrown me. So I look up to him now, but
I'm gonna make this is too easy of a joke, so I'm gonna hit it, man. You are only 5'6", so there ain't too many people that can't outgrow you, brother.
That's right. I'm always in the back of the formation. That's how I realized how short I was. I was always in the back.
Man, and I do because I got the worm pit picture. Like where you were standing out there at the worm pit, and
that's my son.
Oh,
yeah, that's my son. He was in first bat too. He's an arborist. He's an arborist now.
Oh my gosh, dude! He looks. I thought that was you.
And when Chris, when I went through, the worm pit was still over the World War II barracks in the woods, and they moved. That was the only remaining original worm pit obstacle that they moved over to the new obstacle course around over there where third bat used to be, where the school is now. And but what people don't realize is you have to make it through this worm pit. You just ran 5 miles. I went through in the winter, so it was cold, and you get soaking wet before you get on these monkey bars, and the monkey bars spin. So, and then you fall in the water. So you see a lot of guys that can't deal with all those variables, and so you start seeing how natural selection works in a selection process. If you really pay attention, you can tell the difference in a summer class and winter class, and how that in itself is its own selection. I mean, it's all interesting stuff, those kind of dynamics, the selection process of getting to a tier, or trying to get to a tier 1 level.
I talk about, I'm glad we brought that up. You said that's your son. Talk about that, man. How was it then? You're growing up. We've touched on it a bit. It's in the book. But when you became a father, did you have that say, I am not going to treat my son like I was treated, or did you just feel like you're going the same path how you were?
Go in. He signed up behind my back.
No,
he
sounds like his father, man.
Yeah, he secretly wanted to be like me, and I did not want him. I knew the traumatic side of wanting to be that person. There's a traumatic side to wanting to be a real warrior and be tested in real war. There's a traumatic side to that you have to bear. And I didn't necessarily want him to have to do that. I was like, I did it. That's enough. Go to college, be a wrestler. He was a wrestler. And, go wrestle and go, but, that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to follow in my footsteps. And so he went and got a little taste of it, and then moved on to, he went out to the West Coast and spent 3 years felling them big trees out there, and now he's back home as a certified arborist doing tree work.
That's
very cool, man.
He's paying his own bills, so I don't know that I was a very good father, but he's paying his own bills, and he's not in jail.
Awesome. Hey, hope you're enjoying this episode with Lee Deckelman. You're about halfway through this episode, or maybe 30 minutes in, wherever Harold puts this in. So we haven't gotten to the war stories yet. So do not go anywhere, because I promise you there's some awesome war stories. Yes, we talk yoga and mindfulness at this point, but it gets a little bit more aggressive. So if you're losing interest or something, do not stop this podcast. Don't go anywhere. Before we continue, Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal steel, patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with every pull of the trigger. Go there now, fsm.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE. You're going to get 15% off your order, and that's whatever you shoot with. They have the best ammo out there. So if you are a shooter, if you're a hunter, they're going to have what you need, and you're going to get a great deal when you use our promo code. So that's fsm.com, promo code BATTLELINE. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast, and they've been with us since the very beginning. So if you support this podcast, do us a favor and do yourself a favor and go there now. Also, Paymax Tactical is a law enforcement owned and operated company based in Florida that proudly manufactures 100% USA made products. Paymax Tactical has several unique products, including their Lion blank fire device, used as a safer and reusable, cost-effective alternative for breaching and training for both civilian and law enforcement applications. The device uses several types of blank cartridges and is used extensively in training environments, including canine training, and as a way to induce stress on the range.
Yeah.
You've loved using this, I know, as an instructor and in your own life.
Well, you can, the thing with the Lions devices, unlike the Arty Sims that we used to use, there's only one bang that you can do with an Arty Sim, and it's throw one and you're done. With the Lions device, you can make it different levels, which is good for training. I mean, it's great to up the explosion levels, to up the percussion levels, to up everything that you can't do with a Arty Sim, which you guys that know what I'm talking about there with throwing grenades in there, throwing Arty simulation grenades in there. Guys, if you're law enforcement or military, stop using those Arty Sims and go with the Lion device. You're going to have more options. You're going to save money because you can reuse it over and over again. And you're also using a company that actually uses and makes things from America and not overseas. So, man, Paymax is the best out there. Use them. If you're not using them, you're doing yourself a disservice in training.
Absolutely. So in addition to the Lion device, Paymax has produced several products, including their Hades hybrid muzzle device lines, RIP AR ambidextrous charging handles, X-Slick coated bolt carrier groups, pin and weld uppers, and many more stuff that we're going to get kicked off of YouTube if we talk about, but you guys know what we're talking about. If you're a shooter, you're going to love this stuff. All Paymax tactical product, as Chris said, is 100% USA made and backed with a lifetime warranty. You can find out more about the product they offer by visiting their website at pmtactical.com. Use the coupon code TANTO at checkout for 15% off your order. That's pmtactical.com, and just spell the coupon code right, TANTO, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Great stuff. And now back to our interview with Lee Deckelman. You know what I wanted to ask you about? I mean, it's the subtitle of the book itself, where a monster and mindfulness become one. And we've actually had previous shows where we talk about mindfulness. And the first time that I really heard about mindfulness was when I was going through my own issues. And I did read a book about mindfulness, and the whole idea which is especially needed today, of just actually living in the present moment, not doing all this multitasking, as you're saying, and trying to clear your mind of all of these thoughts. And I believe it was Lao Tzu who said, like, if you're feeling depression, you're living in the past. If you're feeling anxiety, you're living in the future. And like the present is where it's at, because we're constantly worrying about, I shouldn't have done this thing 5 years ago, or I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. And we're not just enjoying the present moment. So what does mindfulness mean to you?
Okay. So as I answer that, the neurology, if you're in the future of the past, even working on a cure for cancer, you're most likely in a part of your brain associated with suffering. So it's scientifically proven now that, if you're not present, you can't have real joy. You can buy stuff and get those little bursts of dopamine by all these different things, but you can't find real joy unless you're present. And so what I say in class, almost every class, especially if there's a new student, I always go over is every beautiful memory that you've ever had. And this is all of us. Every beautiful memory that you've ever had has one thing in common. For whatever reason, you didn't want to be anyplace else. The world just melted away. All the problems, the past, the future just melted away. You were just grounded in right now. And that's what people have to do when they jump out of airplanes or do these extreme things, to just be grounded. And so, yeah, if we can learn to not have to scale a cliff, to just be grounded and let right now be enough. And so, it's a real fundamental change of how you filter and interpretate, and you stop negative self-talk, and to just be okay with right now. And so my definition, or I mean, well, the definition of mindfulness is simple. It's to be in the present.
Yeah.
But my way of doing it is using the science, using the logical start of my brain. Is this is actually proven. You're in a part of your brain suffering, even if it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Even if going back, because why isn't right now good enough? Why do you need to be somewhere else? Why do you compartmentalize when you're washing the dishes and think about something awful that happened in the past? Why can't you just focus on washing the dishes, and looking out the window and looking at the birds? So I have a hobby farm now. So I do all types of free therapy because I'm a minimalist. I live off of my 50% VA retirement. And so, I have ducks and goats and all those things. So I spend hours doing what our ancestors did. So what normal humans, and we say that's not normal, but the sign, everything, what normal humans did was live outdoors.
Yeah.
They lived in nature. They lived off of nature. Nature was everything. And, we've got very little nature left. That's not the things we're doing right now. So being mindful, the definition to me, or how to do that, would be to get rid of all your busy, to realize it's a disease, it's a neuroses, it's a toxin that's actually killing you. And the science proves it. Poor breathing. So like every time something happens, and if I'm nervous, that part of my brain that's nervous, it's wired to be nervous, which with me it is, because of how my life is every time something happens, and I immediately go to that neural pathway. But I can change. I can go, okay, this would normally piss me off, but I'm not going to let that piss me off. I'm going to do something different. And over time, that neural pathway will change. You'll slowly stop going to that. What is it? That little part of your brain that's associated with aggression and anger. You'll start bypassing that and go to that frontal cortex, where you can really make good decisions. You can also be diabolical in the front part, and be a pathological liar. And so that's why, the pose in yoga, the stereotypical cover of a magazine and how beautiful, whatever, that's fake. That's a persona. You use the pose and the stress of the pose to get inside. And so that's the internal volume. How do you feel? Can you slow down at any given moment and just go, right now, am I safe? Am I okay? Like, what's really going, not anywhere else, what's good. So mindfulness is slowing down and just being right here, and dealing with whatever you have in that moment. And if you're not in a POW camp or getting chased down by a grizzly bear, you probably shouldn't have your blood pressure up. You probably shouldn't have your heart rate up. You should probably start working on that instead of worrying about other people. And that's another mindful tip I can give you that's not talked about enough, is people minding their own business is a good way to keep drama and busy out of your life.
Say that again, man. Just too much news, too much information out there. So people just turn that shit off and just live. A lot of our problems would go away. I always say, man, the problems are problems when we make them problems, and I think that's the world. 99% of the world today, and half of that is attributed, or 75% is attributed to all the damn news and 24/7. We don't need to know it. We really don't need to know all that shit, because then we
Yeah.
don't focus on right now what's going on. Like you said, washing the dishes. I got a beautiful window that looks out of 10 acres behind. And when you said that, that's what I wash the dish. I'm gonna wash the dish, but I'm looking and I'm just watching the birds and the grass, and listening to the doves, because I can still hear the dove. They're coming out in the spring, and it's completely relaxing. Do you think though? This is me. I'm at a point where I have nothing else to prove. I've been shot at. I've done the jumping. I've been through Ranger Squad. I went through the winter time too. I've got that's why I'm laughing at the worm pit. Cause yeah, you said it just, I was terrible, man. It was right after Malvesta. You get the worm pit,
Yeah.
and I've done.
Your hands don't work when they're cold and wet.
Yeah, that doesn't. But I think sometimes people say, well, that's easy for you guys to say because you really done everything that you wanted to do. You have nothing to prove. So it's easy to say, you know what? I can enjoy life now. I sometimes I don't have an argument for that, man. What do you say? Because I've had people say that to me. Say, well, of course you're relaxed. You've done what you needed to do. There's nothing else that you want to do in life. Everything else is gravy now. And I do feel that way personally. But what do you think, man?
Exactly. That's a great point and question. That's a huge part of this is your suffering is attached to your wants. So whether you want it or need it, just the desire is attached to the suffering. And so when those
By the way,
desires,
that's all Buddhism, right? Like Buddhism,
right.
what
Absolutely.
you're attached to. Buddhism is all about getting rid of attachment.
Absolutely. We're gonna suffer. Buddhism. We're gonna suffer. You know, these things are particular. So where was I going? We were
attachments, and I'm talking about that it's easy for us to say that, hey, you can be relaxed now because
yeah.
we
So,
don't
and that everything now, as you said, is all gravy because of that. Yeah,
because of that.
So Chris, for somebody like probably you and me and guys like us, your whole life you just want to prove you're worthy. You know, however you want to verbalize that. You know, if you're a warrior class of person like you want to prove yourself. And God,
well, we want to be tested, and that's why we joined. But we've been tested. I mean, you're at Blue Diamond. That was a hell of a place to be tested. I know Blue Diamond.
Yeah,
I know that was especially back in those early days. You're getting, just like Tadpole said when he was here, when Spradley was here. I got what I asked for, and I didn't like it. Now there's other views. I got what I asked for too, but honestly, I did like it. But regardless,
I
we did.
It. I loved it. Now we're getting into talking about some stuff that I won't probably lose track of.
No, but like I said, you've been tested. You passed those tests.
Well, yeah. So if and this is a big if I've got some unfinished business with this book and foundation, but to your point, if this is the last thing I ever do today, and I go to that next place tomorrow, I did what I set out to do. And there's a lot of satisfaction that comes with that. And the problem with me is 04 was the culmination of all of it for me. It was like, I did it, man. My whole life I've been worried, scared, am I man enough? Do I have what it takes? Do they want a little shit like me? I mean, all those things all your life. And then to finally operate at a tier 1 level in a real environment, and be tested over and over again with amazing people. That's the best part of the job.
That's the best part.
With amazing people, and so yeah, it's hard after that to fill that void. I can imagine for someone with you, there's a lot of satisfactions comes with getting the notoriety.
It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword,
right? And I don't know that side of it. So, other than having a little bit of unfinished business, I kind of want to tie this thing off before I leave and go to that other place. I realize now, this is just a container. I was given this container and it wasn't a good one. It was a little wore out piece of shit one in the beginning, but I've done the best I can with it, you know, and you were given a container. It's a little bit taller and better looking, maybe.
Just a little. I did. I'm not that tall. Just a little bit, man. Just a little
Ian's
bit.
been given a container where he's probably smarter than both of us put together.
Yeah.
But, you
I
know,
don't know about that.
we've all been given containers for this short journey. We don't know how short or long it's going to be, but it's a short journey, and we can all agree that that container is slowly going to wear out until we change into some other form and go to some other place. And so, you know, all I care about now is that this container has a low internal volume. It feels good. And whatever energy I'm putting out is good or nothing, you know. So from a sense of karma, you know, I either want to put out something positive or practice the four agreements and just keep my mouth shut.
So it is possible to have that drive. Like you say, I'm talking to 30-year-old Lee. I say, man, it is possible to have that drive to want to still be tested, even though you haven't been tested yet, but also find a way to maintain that calmness. Where that's easy for me now because I'm good. I like I said, but you would have told me that when I was 30, I'd have been like, no, I need to be at 120. No, I'm not calming down. I need to be at 120 at all times.
Absolutely, it's nonsense. When you're younger and you haven't peeled any of those layers back of you, and you're just that stereotypical warrior. Yeah, like that's crazy talk. You know, that's pseudoscience. And now I look back at when I first got introduced to mindfulness, you know, when it became real popular for like the second time in the United States, I think in the early 90s. It was just, I wrinkled my nose at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's not going to help me. You know, I need to speed up instead of slowing down and really to not to go on, but, you know, now there's people monitoring your cardiac variability in special operations. And so they can tell, you know, what's going on inside. And, you know, what they're realizing is, you know, there's a lot of people, they're already traumatized. And when they monitor under stress, like they're, when you're measuring the cardiac variability, you're measuring how somebody thinks, you know, positive, negatives, how that makes them feel, how it affects their heart rate and cardiovascular, you know, all those different things. So I can be stoic, like we were taught to do, you know, mean mug people and look tough all the time and hold your chest out, stomach in. But it's proven that if you ask that of yourself and that becomes a norm, that creates a low cardiac variability, which will shorten your life 5 to 15 years. That's a stressful environment that you've created inside just from stress, being worried about failing, being worried, just over worried, overthinking. It's a disease.
Man, I can't believe they have all that at Battalion and SOCOM now. I mean, it's like, seriously, it's like a professional sports team. And I've seen the just even the Ranger gym, the Ranger fitness centers. Man.
Oh yeah.
And they're like a professional. It's like, whoa. I mean, we had nice stuff when we were there in comparison to the regular Army, but now it's unbelievable. And they have all those tests. Do you think though sometimes ignorance is bliss though? Do I really, I mean, do I really want you to tag, I don't need you to tell me when I'm stressed. I don't, that's how I'd be is it a benefit? I don't know if that's a benefit.
I think ignorance is bliss. And I think until somebody's ready, they're going to be defensive, you know, like trying to tell somebody that they need to do something. You know, if they, you know, just like the better example is like an intervention for an addiction, whatever the problem is. Well, you know, as well as I do, that person has to be ready to admit that they really have a problem. And it goes with not just addictions, but with, you know, behaviors, all different types of behaviors. And so, you know, it's Gabor Mate who's a doctor who specialized in childhood trauma and addictions and whatever, and the stuff they're doing out at Stanford with neuroplasticity and things with like Sapolsky and Huberman. There's a lot of great things just in the last couple of years about all this stuff we're talking about. But you can be a monster and become more mindful and more human. And it just depends on what kind of monster you are. And when I think of monsters, I think there's homicidal, maybe sociopathic monsters that are good. They don't want to break the law. They don't want to, but they have no problem killing bad people. They have no problem putting their life on the line to do the right thing when it's the bigger thing. You've got those type of people, which I like to think I'm a part of that. We would be a part of that group. And then you have people that just want to hurt things. They just want to kill things. They want to cause problems. They want people to suffer, whatever. So there's a lot of different types of monsters out there. But I think most monstrous behavior can be corrected through mindfulness, through loving kindness. But somebody has to be, the one thing I know from now being a teacher for several years, somebody has to be ready. And I was ready. I was, like I said, my blood pressure was out of the roof. I, failed my second marriage. Like I was just like, enough, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to try something different.
You had the courage, and that's what it takes first. You had the courage to say, I don't know what I'm doing. That's all I was like, God, I'm divorced twice. I'm second divorce. I lost my kid. God, I need help. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And it was when I was 49. It took me till I was 49 years old. 40. Yeah, I'm old. Shit, I am old. Damn.
Yeah,
I'm old.
So that's time in your life where everything should be taken care of. Everything should be stable. Everything should be paid for. Retirement's right around the corner. There's no drama. And it's not when you're 49. And I was in the same boat. I walked the Appalachian Trail when I was 49. And that's where the next phase of this happened. That's when I realized we're doing it wrong. We're supposed to live in the woods. Like we're supposed to live simple. Like we're not supposed to worry about 3 days from now. Like that, we're not supposed to worry. Like it just happened organically. Walking by myself for 4 months, 12 hours a day in the mountains, it just happened organically. I felt like, and I'm not exaggerating this, I felt like what it must have felt to be a warrior class of Deckelman 1,000 years ago, before there was any idea of any of this shit that we do now. Communities stacked up on top of each other, internet. I can talk to, I felt it, and it was nirvana. That to me, that's nirvana. That was the only time. In combat, it's kind of nirvana. You're grounded. You're not worried about anything else in that moment either. So that was kind of, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. The two things that those two places, whether it was combat or whether one thing, there's a common thing, you're outside. I know it's been like, what? No, but we were outside. We were out in nature.
In nature. I think maybe you will agree with this, maybe not, but I think war, not just being in the war, but being in the battle, like real combat, is the highest game apex predators can play. It is the most extreme apex predator game. And now that's not saying I wouldn't get my ass whipped by every guy in the UFC, because I would. But that doesn't mean that every one of those guys would go over there and do what I did either. So,
exactly.
At a life or death, I think it's the ultimate apex predator game. And there's certain things that happen in that environment that just don't happen in any other environment. Of course.
And it's beautiful. And if you're able to relax,
I'm like you.
I know it's just we could, and everything would just, it's just, wow, this is freaking, look at this gorgeousness going. I mean, I talk about that a lot. And I know being, I wouldn't have been able to do it the first time, but over time, and I spent 10 years over in those various areas as well. Over time, I was able to finally enjoy. I got lucky enough that I didn't die, that I was able to enjoy it towards the end. But in the beginning, I couldn't, because I was too I was shitting my pants. I ain't gonna say I was, but But I agree, and I think that's one common thing people need to get out is that you do need to get outside. And even when we're in combat, we're outside, and I'm telling you, a shot up building is still beautiful, especially when you're seeing it it's gorgeous, or fires, things on fire, just buildings and Land Cruisers and stuff. Or when you see that boom and that plume of smoke, and you catch a little bit of that overpressure. I'm getting tingles because that's just as beautiful
Hey,
as me looking to my field and seeing horses in the back. And that's the common theme, I think.
you would have been a perfect member of Team Miami too.
but you
You
would have
would
been
have,
been,
you know, when I hear you talk about your things and whatever, it's like, yeah, like, you know, I used to be a little embarrassed or ashamed to tell people that I liked it, but I did. I liked it. I felt like I was doing, you know, my purpose and passion had never been stronger. They had never crossed paths in such a profound way. Before and after, nothing compares to that period. You know, and it's all about that purpose, having that guys like us, warrior class of people. If we don't have a purpose, we might as well put ourselves down.
It's true.
And that's why there's 22 a day. Is
true.
You know, and that's another thing, like Tunnels to Tower, a shout out to them. What they're doing for homeless veterans is what our government should be doing, but our government's not, but they are. And I just, from a positive, loving place, man, that's some cool stuff what they're doing, making these homeless housing communities for veterans available. Like, you know, we shouldn't have a homeless, we shouldn't have veteran problems. So no. I think just a shout out to Tunnels and Towers for what a great job they're doing with veterans.
Actually, I think you got a lot of good things and you got a lot of experience. And the thing that I like that you have the walking on the Appalachian Trail and that experience as well, because that's important. And I think all of us as veterans, or if you've been through any trauma, you need to get out, and it's not going to happen, but it's going to be one day that you're out there and the breeze is going to hit you just right, or you're going to hear the right bird, or you're going to see the right squirrel run, and things are just, it is like an epiphany. It's like, oh man, I got it. It makes sense now. And that's what it was with me when I finally got it together. And it was outside, and it was like listening to the birds and the doves. And it was,
and once you get it, you can't unget it.
You can't unget it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah.
I know I'm talking a little redneck there, but I like how I talk. You know, once you get it, you can't unget it.
And that's a good thing. And we're not talking about STDs, dude. We're not talking about herpes. We're talking about like just finally getting that moment of epiphany. And that's I'm going to tell people, and I want you to also, if you can, reiterate or disagree with it, but I don't know when that's going to happen for y'all. It happens different with everybody. I don't know. I don't know. Is there maybe when you hit 50? But I don't want to say that, man. But what do you think, man?
Well, I think ideology. I think ideology can play into it. You know, religion can play. Like, there's so many factors that can play into when a person is ready to really figure out who they are and what their purpose is. Because that's a really important part of this journey, you know. And so my own experience was during COVID, when I was working on my memoir, and that went on to become this book. I lost my train of thought.
No,
you were saying when people make this transition in their life to feeling more secure, as you were saying, and they've moved on from this past and learned from it.
When they finally have let go, man. Appalachian Trail.
Yeah. I can't remember the example I was going to give though, and I guess that's being 58 and
we get hit in the head. How many times we get hit in the head, man?
Hitting my head on those night combat equipment jumps. I woke up unconscious in Thailand. I was just glad I was still seeing Rangers run off the top zone. I was like, oh man, I've been knocked out and I've been left, and they're going to kill me. You know, that's the last thing you want to do, is be the last guy to show up.
I wasn't to jump into what's Lewis's, man. I can't remember Lewis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was it at the airfield.
Yeah, what's the airfield? Like it's I
Oh
keep
yeah.
man, why can't remember? It wasn't Fryer, it wasn't Sicily, that's Benning and that's freaking
Yeah.
Bragg. I can't remember, but I did. I smacked my head. I came down smacked and I went the wrong way and I was the last I was the last ranger, brother. Last ranger
Well,
to the rally and I got my ass and I was
yeah,
untapped. I was a new private. Oh my
yeah, oh
God.
yeah. The
All the
worst.
stereotypical shit that you get oh man, and when we got back, had to clean everybody's weapons. I was belittled. I was emasculated, and
Yeah,
but it never happened again. Never. I
yeah,
was the
right, right,
first one, man.
right, right. You know, and so that's another thing in the military, especially special ops. You're allowed to be monstrous, right? And so then all of a sudden you're not there anymore. It's like, hold on. Like, I don't know how to be anything else. You know, being a monster, being direct, being honest, you know, unfucking stuff on the spot, you know, is a very important part of being able to be part of that organization, you
Yeah.
know, and then to just, you know, do a bipolar shift into the civilian world. Yeah, I, you know, you after Vietnam, a lot of those SF guys went to Thailand, but what a lot of people don't know is they went there because they didn't want them back in the U.S. Like they were killing machines. Like they didn't have an off button. You know, they had turned them on too long.
Yeah.
And you know that can happen. You know, that started happening a little bit with me and with our team. Is you can get a little too comfortable killing people
Yeah.
for reasons you think they need to be killed. You
Yeah,
know,
and by the way, you know,
Yeah.
you mentioning Rob O'Neill, like he even spoke about that himself, how it was like his baseline normal to go out killing guys every night, to go out killing terrorists every night, and then you go back to the civilian world, that's not life anymore. You know what I wanted to ask you about? Totally switching gears here, but
please, please.
when I jumped on the Zoom session with you right away, I noticed the book behind you, and then I noticed the art, and I was like, oh, that's where the cover comes from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is art another outlet for you?
Well, I wish that I could create it as something that beautiful. But to answer your question, yes, but not in this scenario. So we have a lady here named Annie Roan in town that has the painted house, which kids come, grown-ups come and paint and whatever. And her husband's a local doctor and whatnot. And when I got ready to start the foundation, I just asked her, I said, look, I want you to create your version of a yoga tree. You know, I want you to build something beautiful that I can build something behind. And so she did that. But when it came time to do the book, you know, I think the typical thing would be, you know, let me get a picture with my kid on, you know, and, you know, my best cool guy picture and put on the front of my book, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's the normal, that would have been my
Yeah.
normal response too. But for whatever reason, I just felt like that the yoga foundation and how pretty that art was and me talking about internal volume is the whole yoga of it. So I just thought it was a better fit for the cover.
Yeah,
And
it's very unique.
It
I
is.
mean, truthfully, if you didn't look at the back cover and you just looked at the front cover, you would have no idea that this is a special operations military veteran book, but it
yeah,
is, and that's why it's unique. You know what I want to make sure we get to too? If you're cool with it, you know, people do this audience loves hearing the war stories and all that. And I know, as you
yeah,
said, for you, a lot of that was when you went on to contracting.
yeah.
So, you know, Kirk Spradley, when he was on, had cool stories like that. Any war story from your contracting days that stands out to you
Yeah.
that you got
Uh,
something out of, or yeah.
yeah, sure. And I just want you to know that I love being able to do this. This is therapy for me. And
I
so
love being able to do this myself. And I
yeah,
think Chris does too. So yeah.
I'm grateful, and the more I talk about it and peel that onion back, and it's a letting go as well as healing. So, but the combat part of '04 isn't part of my trauma. You know, I enjoyed that. It was the culmination of everything. But so the story that Tadpole told, um, so leading up to that, 14 months prior to Tadpole getting there and Bama getting shot through the neck.
And this is with Juba, right? The deadly Iraqi sniper. Yeah.
Right. The Devil of Ramadi, or several names they called him. And I call him a couple different things in the book. But we was dealing, we were dealing with that fucker for 14 months before Bama got shot by him. He was a handful at the government center, and that was our primary venue. So we had over 20 different incidents like that one incident in my run there. So Ramadi was a great place to test your ability as a team to do your job. So leading up to that was, and Tadpole, Tonto remembers this. So when the white helicopter went down and the Blackwater team died and they killed the pilot on the news, on that video,
the Jordanian pilot with they burned
alive. Russian, Jordanian, whatever he was. I couldn't remember.
You're talking about when it was McGovern and Luke Petrick. It was the
white helicopter that they said they shoot down forever.
I want to say he was Polynesian or something.
There was talk about, when you're in country, you hear a couple different versions sometimes if you weren't there. It was a non-U.S. contracted aircraft and pilot.
State Department wouldn't let us. I was in back. Yeah, I remember.
They were punching out from Kuwait, Baghdad. Blackwater was filling, I think, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams that day. I mean, it was a big day. Yeah. And so the team coming out to replace us got hit. And so one killed instantly, 2 critically wounded, 1 in the face, 1 in the pelvic area, and then one of my best friends, Fondo, was injured, but nothing life-threatening. And so when we recovered them and got back and settled all that, that team came in and replaced us. So they had to deal with a team death. And for anybody that hasn't dealt with that, that's a real thing. The military does it different than the contracting world. That's a real thing when, corporate has to come over and handle a body and deal with that. If you've never been through it, it has its own kind of thing to it. And so we flew out and that team took over. And I think it was 2 weeks later that Fondo and Bama and Tadpole were in the Northeast Tower. Now you can Google my name in the Northeast Tower and whatever, and you can see that tower. And I'm dancing and singing in it because we were salty and I knew where to stand not to get shot. So we were having fun. You can see that actual tower. You can see the actual place where he was shot. So that's to bring that story together. There was a change of guards when those 2 killings went on, but 14 months prior to that, there's an ambush. If your viewers want to look, if you put in Ramadi 2004 RPG ambush, PSD or whatever, it'll come up where we were hit on both sides of the road, and it's on video. And my car got hit with an RPG partially. And that window is in the book and it's hanging on the wall in a local bar. So, but if you want to talk about the details of like an actual event, if we have, I'll tell a story from start to finish, but I kind of want to tie in how me and Tadpole were connected and how crazy that place really was. But the Ramadi sniper missed Sunshine and I were standing on the Northeast and he missed him one day. So, he had missed at least a couple people, Tadpole and my friend Sunshine, but he didn't miss many people. But if you have time, I'd be glad to tell a couple crazy stories.
Go for it. I mean, I don't know about Chris. I don't know about anywhere to go. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first time I ever killed somebody is a funny story other than,
Which, by the way, where else do you hear that? but here that it's a fun.
What's
The
that?
first time I ever killed somebody is a funny story only
Yeah,
on this
that's
podcast.
right
Okay,
here.
so I'll tell that one first. I'll tell that one first. So 2 or 3 days a week, we go down to the government center, 5 vehicles and, salty PSD and even the agency, the guys doing what Tato was doing. Those guys were hunkered down in Ramadi during that time. Like nobody was going nowhere, but we were. And so we went downtown. We were supposed to be there for a few hours and then back. That would have been just a normal day downtown. And the Marines are down there.
Yeah.
And, they're black rifles ready and they're in full kit, man. And, they've been out there all day and they're doing what Marines do. They're doing what they're told and they're waiting to kill people, and that's it. And so we come to the Northeast, we come in and we get the report. As soon as we get there, we get the ROE for the day as soon as we get there. And it's like there'd been a bunch of shooting just outside the northeast corner east, where a lot of shooting came from. And so, and the ROE was, you can shoot at squirt or shoot a warning squirt, whatever it was. And so we roll up and the Marines are sitting there. The book Joker 1 was written by Marines. It was that group that Joker 1 was there.
Okay.
And so I had to walk in front of them. They were facing north. And me and Pigpen, who was a retired sergeant major from Delta, Kurt Utz, wonderful guy. If you guys can ever get him on your show or guys like him. But I told Pigpen, I said, I'm going to go out the gate so I can see down that road. Because if you were behind the security of the compound, you couldn't see down the road properly. And that's where the shooting was come from. And what they would do is they peek out. Oh, I see somebody peek out and shoot your ass. And then you never see them again. They drop the weapon off and walk down the street with no weapon and they look like a normal person. So that's how they played that game. So I told Pigpen, I said, I'm going to punch out about 30 feet up there and see if I can see somebody. And so I did. And so now I'm outside the base. There's no cover. And there's a picture of that in the book. He took a picture of that. And about 10 or 15 minutes after I got out there and he took the picture, a guy steps out from behind one of those little Haji stands, where they sell little stuff out of on the side of the street, like kind of like a homeless person almost, stepped out from that stand with an AK. And it's called an ambush. So where he was standing and where he was most likely to run back to when I started shooting, I just shot in between there about 15 rounds and he just ran into it and fell over. So I get up and move behind cover, and Pigpen comes up there and move behind cover, and it just goes dead quiet again. Like, it's weird how quiet the earth can get after some shooting and nobody wants to shoot or get shot at anymore. It just gets quiet.
Yeah.
And so it got really quiet, and the call comes already. Godfather's ready to leave. So there'd been a little shooting. He did his little meeting. We're ready to leave. So I'm walking back by the Marines. This is the funny part of the story. So I'm walking back by the Marines, and there's a major in charge of this little group. And I said, it's just like turkey hunting, boys, except you get to move around and you ain't got to wear all that camouflage bullshit. And they have been sitting out there all day waiting to kill somebody. I come out here, drive up in a Mercedes, BMW. I got my Oakleys on. I come up, I shoot a guy, walk off, tell him have a good day. So that was the first guy I ever killed.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
That's fun. That's funny. Man, we had guys giving, because and at that time too, we're contractors. We did feel, I don't give a shit if you're a colonel or general. I don't work for you. And we had guys giving the brass. So you looked for shit like that to say, because you're like, man, I couldn't say this when I was in, but I can say it now. So you're looking for that perfect time to say something just like you said. And it was right at the perfect time too. That's why I'm laughing, because like, man, I know guys would have literally killed, like you did, literally killed to be able to put them so they could have said something like that to a major or a colonel and just walk off and get in a BMW or with a BMW Mercedes with a V12 and go and take off, man.
Yeah, V10s and V12s were in every video. It was just, you know the deal. It's a different, and once you've been attacked and, you know, level 3 to level 6, non-standard military vehicles, which is going to be your civilian, you know, type stuff. Once you get attacked in that and you're okay, you're like, bring it, motherfuckers. Like, and so after the first time they wadded us up a little bit, I was like, yeah, this stuff works. You know, this armor works. And it does give you a big advantage. They're expensive, especially, you know, if you get 1 or 2 blown up a month. It's an expensive, but you know, war is about making money. War is not about what I thought it was.
No,
So you know, war is about making money.
Yeah, that's a cool story because it is, and it for those of y'all that served at that time, you know what he's going, and I know a lot of them are smiling out there, laughing, remembering some of their own.
You could bust a major's balls. Yeah, you kind of, you know, I wasn't being a jerk. I was being funny because I knew what it was like to be that private and sit out in the sun all day and drink canteen water and hate life. You know, I knew what it was like. So, you know, but yeah. And if we have time, the U-turn. Do you know Greg Anderson? He was a second back guy.
That's what I was saying. That's Snake, man. That's
so
who you have in the
Snake,
picture.
I was on his podcast.
Greg's been on our show before.
Yeah, the police officer. Yeah, a long time ago, probably a year or 2 ago.
Okay,
I know.
You guys had him probably because of the video he made.
Yes,
with the law enforcement, all that during COVID. That was his, you know, got
claim to fame.
He's doing a lot of cool things, but he and I were in the lead vehicle. If we have time for another short story,
of course.
Yeah, so we're in Ramadi. Our guy is Ambassador Stu Jones. He's in charge of the Al-Anbar Providence, the Sunni Triangle, everything political, the voting, everything that's going to happen, the things the agency wants to influence, the bags of money. We had all that shit. So the governor of Ramadi is who we really got to manipulate this guy. You know, it's him and the provincial council. And so he needs to come to Camp Fallujah. I think Mattis was meeting there and our guy was meeting there. So it was the top Americans, military and civilian, meeting in Fallujah, at Camp Fallujah, for this meeting. Well, he didn't want to ride with us. We had been attacked so many times. He didn't want to ride with us. So he was going to have his driver drive from Ramadi to Fallujah. We were going to drive from Ramadi to Fallujah to this designated spot just north of Fallujah, just north of the Cloverleaf. We were going to pick him up and then take him on to Camp Fallujah, which would have been a couple miles. We would have been able to get him through security, you know, into Fallujah so he could go to this meeting with all the top guys. So we all go 5 vehicles, full PSD, combat PSD to Camp Fallujah, and 2 vehicles go back to get him and then come back to link up. So we get our principal, you know, Ambassador Stu Jones, we get him, or it might have been Kidd by then, but we get our principal to the meeting, leave the majority team, then me and Snake and Rancher, who's a Delta guy. He was a battalion guy, did best Ranger, then went on to the unit. And I forget who the other guy with him was, but Rancher was driving the limo. I was driving the lead. So we had a lead and a limo scenario because it was the governor. So we didn't have a full package. And so we're leaving the pickup and we have to merge right, this long, you know, like a mile long, merging right and up. It's going up onto the interstate. And if we would have went straight, we would have went right into Fallujah where the Blackwater guys went in. Didn't come back. So it's that same intersection. So we're going right and the armor blocks out noise. So you can get your ass handed to you and it still doesn't seem that bad because you got an earplug in one ear and you got your surveillance kit in the other ear, and then you got the armor. So, you know, you'd have to take a direct hit for it really to fuck up your hearing. And so we're driving up, and I love driving. So I was the AIC at the time, and Rancher was the shift leader. And so I'm driving the lead, he's driving the phone. So we get about halfway up and I go, Snake, did you hear that? And he goes, yeah. When we come up over a little military convoy was getting their ass handed to them from Fallujah.
Wow.
And we drove, I merged right in the middle of it behind a 7-ton. So this 7-ton, this 50 cal, this guy's, he's Vietnam. He's heads down. And I know he was scared. He probably hadn't been. It was probably the first time he'd ever been attacked, and he was acting like it. But what scared me is just like when a woman goes crazy. When another American goes crazy, you can't shoot him back. You just got to let him do, just like when a woman goes, you can't really.
You gotta let him do crazy. You just gotta let it go out. It's like,
you gotta let him.
You gotta let the gas run out, man. Yeah, you gotta let it run out.
So out of everything that I went through, that was the scariest I was. It was another American shooting into Fallujah, and I thought he was going to turn and see the BMW, and go, terrorist, BMW.
Why? Because that was always the bolo too. It was
that
always
was the narrative.
That was the joke, man. It was always, what's the bolo today? It's probably a black BMW and a black Mercedes and maybe an Opal, white
That's
Opal.
what they were telling conventional forces. That's what they, special forces knew it, but they were telling conventional forces, be on the lookout for
everything Mercedes that we're driving.
So we did. I was in a thing with Stanford. I've been shot at 4 times by friendly fire, 4 different incidents. I was in some study in Stanford. But anyways,
that's crazy.
So just when I was ready to go, I got to do something other than be 20 meters behind this guy going 40. I went from 80 miles an hour to like 30 miles an hour because that's how fast he was going. And I didn't want to scare him.
Sure.
About that time, there was a huge explosion in front of his vehicle. And so what was happening, it looked like cannonballs were being fired at us and exploding. So the Afghanis learned how to make an RPG self-detonate at a kilometer.
The Afghanis or Afghanis or Iraqis?
Well, I heard it was the Afghanis created it, but they were doing it.
Well, that's how the Osama. That's I actually. I was heard from Somalia when they took the Black Hawk down. The Somalis were, but that was sort of a Bin Laden. He was right. Yeah, you're right.
So he spent a lot of time.
You're right. No.
So that's what was happening. They were 1,000 meters. They were a kilometer back, shooting like tons of art. There was shit blown up everywhere. So one of them hit the front left of this the thing, and they hit their brakes, and my instinct took over. I just hit the gas. I've been driving long enough, doing PS long enough. The instinct is when something goes wrong is to stop, slow down, be safe. When you know that you understand protection at the tier 1 level, you know that it's opposite, to go against your instinct and do the opposite.
You're in the kill zone. You're in the kill zone. You're just thinking drive.
Well, and it wasn't the first time. That video that's online shows it another scenario. The last thing you can do is block the limo.
Sure.
Like the last thing, the limo driver, whatever he does, he's always right.
Yeah.
And everybody around him has to be able to adjust. So anyways, so we go right, push past it. Now we're clear. We're clear of the Fallujah cloverleaf. We're headed back towards Ramadi because the roads have been blocked off by the military ever since the killing of the Blackwater guys. They controlled that cloverleaf and shut a lot of it down. So the plan was to go down about a half a mile or so, do a U-turn, come back by Fallujah, back by where we picked him up, back by the cloverleaf,
sure.
Go down about a mile or so, exit, and go to Camp Fallujah, which was northeast. That was the only way to get to it. So after this attack, I punched right, and you know how it is. You talk on the car radios when you're out, but we were so close together. I was on the surveillance kit, on my surveillance kit, driving. So I was like, Rancher, this is Sonny. He's like, go ahead, Sonny. I said, you still want a U-turn? He's like, Roger that, Sonny. I go, U-turn in now. And I turn, and the car kind of settles, and I see Rancher face come flying up, and we look at each other, and then I look back at Snake, and I go, holy fuck. And I hit the gas, I leaned down, I pulled the steering wheel in. You couldn't see me or Snake. We were down so far. I was just hoping the car didn't run off the road. So when I had to drive under the 50 cal that was on the other side of the road now, and the damn RPGs are still coming from Fallujah, and we're getting ready to drive through that without another care in the world. And so we did. And when we got done, the moral of the story was the governor Ramadi didn't want to ride with us because he thought we would get attacked, and we got attacked anyways.
You got attacked. That's too bad.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And it,
So
and
there's
those
stuff
are,
like that.
yeah, but
Funny stuff.
and it's I just looking. I can imagine you guys seeing each other and looking at each other as you pass, and the faces you make that are just hilarious. And there's it's jackassery on the 110th level, man. But it's fun, and it's dangerous. But it's so ludicrous that it's funny. And you're driving.
If you can have wit naturally during a scenario like that, you got something that that's what you need.
Well, it helps to get you through. It definitely laughter is the best medicine. And that's what people don't get when they talk, or they don't really understand. And I do think, and going to movies and things, I do think we even told me, it's like, we got to put the jackassery in there, because that's what happens. It's not all bravado. We're not all the bravado. It's not the cool. I mean, it's there, man. I get it. We're shooting, killing, brothers in arms, but it's the funny shit, the shit that, I had to take a shit. Let's put that in there, man. I
wish we had more time. I got like 10 kind of non-combat stories funnier than hell.
We'll do it another time at some point, because we've covered a lot here. And I also want people to pick up the book, which is Internal Volume. Actually, last really quick thing I would ask is you're retelling us all these stories from your contractor days and telling everyone's call sign. What was your call sign?
Sonny. So I got lucky. It's usually the Delta guys. If you're a Delta guy, you already have one, because they operate with call signs in the unit. Yeah. And it's usually not hyper-masculine. It's usually a fuck up.
Oh, yeah.
So Pee-wee was this big, scary, friendly guy, but his call sign was Pee-wee. Pigpen is a neat freak, and so I was given Duck Hunter, because when I went through the first training class for Triple Canopy and did the advanced work for the hotel in Memphis to Peabody as part of our selection course, it was a 10-day selection course. It wasn't a training course. It was a 10-day selection course. Mm-hmm. And where were we going with that?
The Duck Hunter. Why'd you get your call sign? How'd you get it?
Oh, yeah. So Mad Max, I don't know if y'all know Craig Maxim, but he's legendary. And for me, not in a great way, man. He's just too difficult. He needs yoga, man. He needs some money. he was me times 3 when it came to just being short and aggressive, and had everything to prove to the world and whatever. He was me on steroids, and just not an easy guy to get along with. And so I'm the advanced team leader, so I'm doing the briefing for the advance on the Peabody Hotel, the arrival. And so once I go through how we're going to do it, we get to the elevators. And so it's always great if you can have a picture of like an elevator and you standing in it. Then it's like, oh, I get the perspective. We can fit 4 people in there. We can fit 6 people in there. But the team going in, they already know the buttons are on the left. If there's an emergency, here's a key and you can operate. You do all those things in advance so that everything's seamless. So when we get to that picture, I tell it and we go on, and Max goes, hold on, go back to that picture. And we go back to that picture, and it gets quiet, because anytime Max says something, especially if he acts mad, everybody gets quiet, because if Max doesn't like you, you don't get selected. Everybody figured that out day 1, and so we're on day like 8. So, I knew this wasn't good. And so he said, go back to the picture. And I'm wearing American Eagle khaki cargo pants and an American Eagle kind of flannel looking, kind of shirt. It was a nice look for business casual. And that was the best I had. We were getting ready to go to Iraq. We didn't bring suits. Well, he thought I should have been wearing a suit. And I was like, well, we didn't bring suits. He said, well, you should have had a suit. So so he was mad. He looked at me like he could kill me. Well, Greedy, who was another Delta guy that was good friends with him, he goes, Duck Hunter. He said, we're going to call you Duck Hunter, because I looked like a duck hunter. But when I got to Ramadi, our principal was named the Godfather. And since I was going to be his driver, I was going to be one of the three sons. And Pee Wee gave me the call sign Sonny.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, got
it. It would have been fitting. Cool. It would have been fitting during that time. I was a really aggressive. I was in my prime. I wasn't scared of anything, and I liked women. So Sonny would have been.
Now you're Cy. Now you're Uncle Cy, right? Is that because you're Cy, aren't you now? Uncle, is it Grandpa Cy or Uncle Cy now? What are they calling him? The old fart on the. I'm thinking of the Duck Dynasty guys, man.
Oh, that guy's pretty smart. That guy's pretty. The father. The
father. Is it Cy? That's Cy, right?
He was. I can't remember. Oh no, you're talking about the crazy one.
Yeah, the crazy one. Yes.
Oh no,
that's Cy. That's you now, man. That's your call. Yeah. It's changed. You've grown up, so now you're crazy and grown.
Brother, whatever. Good to go. Whatever you give me, I'll take it.
Oh shit!
Yeah, this was awesome though, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. There's so many great stories here. And actually, I should point out before we go, I love the Super Jew shirt, and I did see the Super Jew shirt in the book itself. If you don't know, I myself am Jewish, even though I have the Italian last name. I don't have the Deckelman last name, but
I didn't know that. But
because no one thinks Scotto, because my dad was Catholic, but right. He married my mom. My mom made him convert, as like a lot of Jewish women who marry do. And I mean, I was raised completely Jewish, so were you bar mitzvahed and all that stuff?
Well, see, that was the thing. My dad died when I was 9, so I was going to synagogue until I was 9.
Okay, so you never went through it.
No, so we went to we moved to where my mom was from, which was Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and it's the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So I grew up like just scared. When I came here in the 70s, not that it's a big deal, but when I came here in the 70s, it was an eye opener. Kids down here fist fight on the playground, down south, they didn't like black people and they didn't like Jewish people. And they were telling jokes all the time and whatever. I was like, I don't need to tell anybody,
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, man, I live on Long Island, right? So you think, it's all Jewish people, but the town I grew up in was Catholic, man. And I think by and large, anyone growing up Jewish gets shit at some point. And I think anyone who tells you they don't is probably lying. And actually, when I did Birthright and I got to go to Israel, I went with people from Texas. I went with people from all over, man. And it was a great experience. I was going to say, there were people like you who didn't get bar mitzvahed, for whatever reason, and they got to do it in Israel, which was really cool experience.
Oh God, I would have loved it on that. Let's see if I got it right here. So, I believe in something bigger, and but I don't really follow the regimen of religion. But
I'm the exact same way.
I do practice. Yeah, I do practice Musar, and that goes back to Chris. I practice a virtuous approach towards this experience, and my goal isn't to be better than the Oli or whatever. My goal is to just have a better day than I did the day before. My internal volume, the way I talk to people, whatever, is just, getting away from what worked for me my whole life, being in survival mode and being a monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just be a good virtuous person. A good Christian will never tell you, and you shouldn't. If you are a good Christian, you're telling people they have to be Christians, and you're not a good Christian. A Christian. I just tell people, you just believe in something. Though there is something bigger than us out there. I believe in God. I'm proud to believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I'm proud to believe in, that doesn't make me or Ian enemy at all. He believes in it, but that's cool. But we both believe in something bigger than us, and we both believe in virtue, and that's important.
Well, I grew up. So when my dad died, I was exposed to I went to church with my friends, whatever. So I know more about Christianity than I do about Judaism. But and what you're saying is very true, depending on what type of church you go to and where it's at. It's all people.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's
community.
Yeah, it's just so what I really like about the Jewish religion, even though I'm not practicing the religion, what I really like about it and why I claim it with those two choices is, if you practice Judaism, all good people go to that better place.
Yeah.
You have to be a good person, and what Jewish people really want during this experience, from what I understand, is to just be happy and well and wish that on their neighbors. And, if you can keep your filters and your mindset, and if you can be mindful and stay in that mode throughout your day, you're going to start putting a lot of good days together.
Yeah.
And start changing your narrative. I don't want my story to be of a monstrous, violent person. I want my story to be is how I overcame all that and became a real mindful human being.
Yeah, no, that's all super well said, man. This has been great. And everything you're saying actually about religion totally resonates with me. To me, it's just more about community. I do feel a sense of community when I meet someone else who's Jewish, right? Because we probably have similar experiences in some way. But yeah, I don't really follow the tenets of the religion necessarily. But it's also race, which would be a whole nother discussion that people don't get into. Because my mom, for example, took a DNA test, and it was just like 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. It was exactly what I thought it would be. Like, there was nothing else. So when people are like, it's not really a race, like if you're born into this, right, and you didn't convert, it actually is, because I could take a DNA test and my blood will actually say that I'm Ashkenazi Jewish, or if you're Sephardic Jew, which would be a whole nother discussion. But the point being, Pick Up Internal Volume, Where a Monster and Mindfulness Become One by Lee Deckelman. I could tell that we could easily go another 2 hours, but we're not going to do it right now. And go to beyogastrong.net, which I should point out is not the address on here. On here, it's beyogastrong.org. So I guess you've changed it. So beyogastrong.net. And I don't think you do any social media, right? That's it.
So during COVID, when I wrote this book, I didn't have a phone, or I wasn't on social media or anything. So I kind of evolved back to all that to try to do what I'm trying to do.
You are on Instagram, because I follow you on Instagram.
Now, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so then where can people follow you? Because I didn't even know you had.
Okay, so beyogastrong.net. So like I said, I was a minimalist. So during COVID, when my website came due, it was like $350, and I didn't have an extra $350. So the website just kind of went away, and then I got some more money and got the website back with the net. They wanted a lot of money for me to get the org back. So Lee Deckelman at Gmail, Be Yoga Strong, Coffee County, Lee Deckelman on YouTube, beyogastrong.net is the website. But if somebody just wants to reach out to me, Lee Deckelman at Gmail, if somebody wants to reach out for any reason, any positive, any productive reason.
And on Instagram, just search there's not many Lee Deckelmans out there. So if they just search his name, that's how I found him. It just
perfect, because I didn't even know you had one. So that's great.
Okay, man. I'll have to check it.
Okay, all good. But this has been awesome, and we really appreciate it. And I got a lot out of it.
And but I just want to let you know, I've had to piss for like 30 minutes, man.
You know what? I got to piss
and
too.
So I just want you to know, man, that's how much you've been captivating me. Is I've been holding this damn thing for 30 minutes.
I'm gonna use that quote. You're gonna use one of mine.
I'm gonna use it. I've been holding that piss for 30 minutes. Quoted.
That's all for this episode of Battle Line Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battle Line Podcast and on Twitter at Battle Line Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.